Hey guys, this is Ionic Covalent and I'm going to tell you the story of my life. So sit back and watch this Draw My Life video. I was born out of two people loving each other, and this is a story of how they fell in love. Well, to say that my parents' love story is cheesy is an understatement. My parents' love story is cliche. They somewhat have the same storyline with a story that some famous dude, Shakespeare was it, wrote. The one with the tragic ending. Ah, Romeo and Juliet. My mom was like Juliet and my dad was like Romeo. But instead of their family being complete rivals or enemies, it was my parents' ancestors who hated each other's guts. Their ancestor story went on like this. My mother's ancestor was super famous at that time. People were always drawn to him. That may be the reason why they called him Metal. He was so charismatic that people would do anything he said, literally. If you somewhat angered him, he would just tell you what he wanted you to do, and you would do it, whether it be a dangerous and a foolish thing to do. It was as if something invisible was pulling and forcing you to do his command. Scary? I know. This is why his enemies were so afraid to fight or challenge him, because they knew that they would lose in the end. All of the monsters, villains, etc., they would cower whenever they heard his name. All except for one. This is where my father's ancestor comes in. People hated father's ancestor. He was the exact opposite to Metal. Instead of people being drawn to him, people would stay away from him. Literally. People would be drawn back in the most painful way anyone could ever imagine. Whenever they get too close to him, and whenever you liked it, because why not? So, because of this, people called him non-metal. He hated metal, simply because the was so arrogant. He is, trust me, he's so arrogant. Both of them were the exact opposites. If one likes a certain something, the other one hates it, etc. But the only thing that they have in common is the fact that people would cower whenever they heard their name, and them hating each other too. There was this one time where non-metal became so full on metal's arrogance, so he challenged metal into a fight to show which one is strongest and hope that this fight will put a stop to metal's arrogance. So they had an intense fight and all. Many people, probably hundreds, were watching to see who's the strongest. Many days, weeks, and months passed by, but they still haven't finished the fight. With inhumane strength and never ending stamina, they fought tirelessly, with rain pouring down and sun shining down on them. The audience, well, they stopped coming to the place where they fought to watch because they got bored. Until their fight went on for years. One day, they both noticed how the two of them were slowly becoming tired. They, of course, wanted to stop the fight, but both are too proud to admit that they quit. So, they made a vow that their 10th descendant shall inherit their powers and continue their fight to see who is the strongest. This is where my mom and dad comes in the story. Not only did both of them inherited their ancestors' powers, but they were the next metal and non-metal. Wow. My mom got metal's powers while my dad got non-metal's powers. Yes, they both hated each other's guts the first time they met. Then their parents finally spilled the beans about them having to fight and all. They did. My mom and dad did fight. But there was this one time where my mom got injured because of dad's attack. She thought that he would attack again and finish her off. But instead of doing so, my dad stopped and helped my mom. Oh, how romantic. My mom was so amazed by the compassion my dad showed, even though they were both born to fight each other. That was the time when my mom fell in love with my dad. Though my mom wanted to stop the fight, some invisible force made them to continue their fight. As time went through, my dad noticed how my mom was intentionally making her attacks weaker and slower. Because of this, my dad too fell in love with my mom. Both confessed their love for each other whilst fighting. The exact moment they confessed, their powers were gone in an instant. So they went and embraced each other. There they realized that love is stronger than hatred. They didn't care one bit at the fact that their powers were gone. The most important thing for them is them being together. Just like your family. We wouldn't care at whatever challenges that life will give us because we have and care for each other, and we ensure ourselves that we can face all of them together forever. One of my family's favorite things to do is donating food, money, clothes, etc. at an orphanage called Electrons. Now, don't ask me why they named that orphanage Electrons. So I suggest that you guys do that too, donating stuff to the people in need. So I lived a happy life with loving parents that guide and support me, with good friends surrounding me. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. So that's it. This is the story of my life so far. But I do know that there is more to come. Bye guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching. Bye.
What's up guys, Covalent Compound here, bringing you a story told in a Draw My Life video. So sit back, relax, and eat snacks. My life started with my parents' stories. My mother and father's stories started years and years ago, before they were even born. Well, you see, their paths were supposed to link. They were destined to meet. The day that they were born, people rejoiced, for the two lovers that was once separated were finally back in each other's arms. Who are the two lovers, you ask? Those are my mother's grandmother and my father's grandfather. They were childhood friends that they were always together. Both descendants of the great non-metal, a well-known figure for the wrong reasons. But fortunately, that vanished when a descendant of a metal and non-metal created a bond. It was fine for my grandparents, until they grew older and developed feelings for one another. This made it difficult, for they knew that it could never be. For two non-metals could never create a bond strong enough to stay together. So they decided to part ways and go to their prospective partner, metals. Years have passed by, but both couldn't forget the happy memories that they created together. They had their own lives, own children, and their own properties. Yet their mind would always linger at the face of their beloved. At the same time, both lovers made a plan. Mother's grandmother mailed a letter to my father's grandfather. The letter contained a plan that both intended to do no matter what challenges it may bring, just for the sake of others that experienced the same experiences they felt. Their plan was simple, but simple plans always needed bigger sacrifices, a sacrifice that can take away their lives in the process. But both felt nothing except for the pity for the people who suffered the same fate as they did. Of course, they would miss their children, and they couldn't bear to think of a life without them, but they knew that they needed to do it. As they said, it was for the best. All they had to do was touch their firstborn pregnant child and give all of their powers to the baby that rested inside of its mother's womb. The baby that was inside of the womb of the daughter of my grandmother was my mother. And the baby boy that my great-grandfather's daughter is expecting was my father himself. They decided to take their plan into action. At the same time, but miles and miles apart, they put their hands on top of their sleeping daughter's womb and gave them all of their powers to the innocent fetus that was resting. With a last ounce of strength, they whispered a soft farewell and a shaky kiss, the last act of compassion that they would ever do before taking their last breath. The next day, my grandmother found my great-grandmother's lifeless body, and so did my grandfather with my great-grandfather. They became sad, but they soon accepted it. Years after my father and mother were born, they somehow found each other and realized that they seemed to recognize each other. So they had a conversation. After that day, they regularly met to uncover the feeling that they felt when they first met, and finally they found out that they were meant to be. But unlike my great-grandparents, they decided to share instead of give, and their bond worked out, and after a few years, I became the first ever covalent compound. In my family, we always give and share. Sharing and giving is our happiness. My parents taught me how to share and give. Our family may not be perfect, but because we have a strong relationship and we communicate with each other, we became an imperfect but happy and strong family. We are not just an ordinary family, because we are open and we share our problems with one another. Some people think that we are weird, for we know each other very well. Well, I guess that it is the result of being open to each other and having a strong relationship. In my family, we always give and share. Sharing and giving is our happiness. My parents taught me how to share and give. Our family may not be perfect, but because we have a strong relationship and we communicate with each other, we became an imperfect but happy and strong family. We are not just an ordinary family, because we are open and we share our problems with one another. Some people think that we are weird, for we know each other very well. Well, I guess that it is the result of being open to each other and having a strong relationship. We will help community by doing good deeds such as helping your fellow, teaching people how to share and give. We will set ourselves as a good example to the community.